Okay. Well, so thank you for talking to us today. So this interview is, as discussed, on behalf of the Johns Hopkins University Carey Business School Entrepreneurial Finance course. So if you wouldn't mind, could you just tell us a bit about what is Impact Hub Baltimore?
Yeah, sure. Impact Hub Baltimore, it will be a physical workspace, shared workspace, and community center for social entrepreneurs. Um, we've been kind of community building in the social enterprise community in Baltimore for the last few years. And last fall, we joined the Impact Hub network. There's about 60 Impact Hubs around the world, and we're looking to bring Impact Hub to Baltimore. And so we are currently working to open the Impact Hub space for this fall.
Okay. What kind of projects do you support? Are there any examples of what you do?
Sure. So we have a pilot space right now on 25th Street, and we have about 25 members there now. And a couple of people that work there. There's a guy named Chris Wilson who does workforce development, particularly in the Barclay neighborhood. He worked for workforce development for Greater Homewood Community Corporation, and was looking to hire particularly ex-convicts in the neighborhood.
Wow.
And to do so, he actually kind of on the side started a contracting company that has to date hired about 50 people. So that's a good example. There's also an organization called Baltimore Core, run by a guy named Fagan Harris, who he is the program is essentially recruiting young, youngish, 25 to 30-year-old kind of talented people to work in for mission-driven organizations in Baltimore. So he's recruiting from around the country to people in corporate positions. So those are just a couple examples, but we have a lot more too.
Oh, great. So it would seem that social entrepreneurship might have a little bit of a different approach to startup fundraising than your typical startup, say in technology or life sciences. So could you tell us a little bit about your experience with navigating startup funding, maybe with angels or venture capital, or if there's anything that might differentiate what you do from typical startup financing activities?
Yeah, sure. So social entrepreneurship is it's sort of an emerging field, and a lot of social enterprises actually operate as nonprofits even. And so, by virtue of us working with a lot of mission-driven organizations, we're able to actually tap into the foundation community. So it's not your typical venture capital. It's actually kind of quite different. The good thing about that type of funding is it obviously comes without, for lack of a better way of describing it, it's free money. I wouldn't necessarily say that to the foundations, but we don't have to generate a return necessarily. There are foundations that are interested in what's called a PRI, which is sort of like an investment, but there aren't too strict requirements on actually paying the money back. But if you hit certain thresholds, you do pay the money back. And I think for us that is a real differentiator from a typical startup because just because we're working with mission-driven organizations, we're able to tap into foundation money. We actually, to date, have not needed to go to a real, traditional investor that might invest in a tech startup or something. Let's see. The only other thing I would add is it's almost like a particular sector of the capital markets. It's impact investing, which is also an emerging field, but it's kind of a crossover of like venture capital and people looking to invest in things that have an impact. We have not had any direct investment from anybody that explicitly calls themselves that, but we are, by nature of what we're doing, we are starting to see people take more interest in Baltimore because of Impact Hub. So we're just starting to navigate some of that for And in some ways, we might be brokering more sort of relationships with some of our social entrepreneurs there, if that makes sense.
Definitely, that's great.
So, but we're just starting to navigate that a little bit with some people in DC.
It's awesome. Do you have any final words of advice for individuals who may want to become entrepreneurs, specifically, I suppose, social entrepreneurs?
General words of advice. It's really easy to say after having done it for a while. I mean, this may sound terrible, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that anybody does it. It's often a lot more challenging than people might think it will be. That being said, it is really rewarding, and if you're willing to put in a lot of hours, then it can really pay off. I think personally, I've been lucky, and privileged in some ways to have supportive friends and family. And I think that anytime you're being an entrepreneur, you need to have people around you that are supportive and willing to put up with some of the tough times. And I not to make it all personal, but it does begin to affect your personal life in some ways. I was lucky enough to have a strong, supportive group of friends. I would say also that in Baltimore in particular, but I guess this goes for anywhere, having we have a great network of friends that are also social entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So that has really helped along the way. So in a lot of ways, those have become my best friends, is the people that are going through some of the similar things and challenges that I am. And that might not be the exact answer you're looking for, but I think the personal aspect of it and the support is really key, because that gets you through the rough times that are frankly inevitable.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much. I know you have to go now. It's 11, but we'll follow up with you. And if you have any additional advice or want to share anything more with Cary Business School about your Impact Hub Baltimore endeavors, then we'd be happy to hear about it. So thank you so much for your time, and hope you have a great day.
Okay, great. Keep me posted.